Okay, we're back.
We just filmed a Facebook Live, but it appears that it didn't upload.
Okay, it looks like we are recorded.
There we go.
If you're watching us, give us a thumbs up so we know that you're here. We had a lovely dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like we are live this time. Sorry for the technical difficulties. My name's Whitney. I'm the business manager for Palette Wine and Urban Cork, and I am here with Emily, our lovely enologist. And this month we're going to talk to you all about rosé. We thought it's February, it's Valentine's Day. Let's talk about the pink wine that so many people love. So I will get us started with a brief history of rosé. So actually, some of the very first wines were rosés. They were what they would call a field blend. So the red wine grapes and the white wine grapes were blended together and fermented together. And that was really the popular style of wine, kind of diluted. Red wines tended to be really harsh and not the wines that we are used to drinking now. So those wines really came into fashion with clarets, which is Bordeaux blends. And it was actually the English royal family who really made those popular many, many hundreds of years ago. And then in the 19th century, south of France, which is still today known for their rosés, kind of regained popularity with vacationers. Drinking rosé was kind of seen as luxury and leisurely down in the south of France with vacationers. And then in the United States, white Zinfandel became popular in the 1970s. I think a lot of people are familiar with Sutter Home White Zinfandel, which is typically a very sweet rosé that was commercially popular in the 80s and the 90s, but never really gained steam with sommeliers or wine critics. It was kind of wasn't fancy enough. You wouldn't see that in fine dining restaurants. And then in the 2000s, French rosés again got popular. Celebrities like Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt started producing rosés in the south of France. And then in recent years, it's continued to gain popularity with both Old World rosés and New World rosés from the United States and other countries, gaining respect with wine critics, sommeliers. It's not uncommon to see rosés in fine dining restaurants. So yeah, that is kind of a brief overview of rosé in the beginning and how we got to the rosés of today. So Emily, you want to talk a little bit about how rosés are made?
Yeah, of course. But I'd also like to comment. I didn't know that rosés had such a history. I thought they were more of a something that became popular more recently and kind of a recent development. So it's really cool to see that there's actually more of a history and it's been a process.
Yes, I'll have to send you. I found a few articles. Like I said, that was a very brief history of rosé. But I'll send you the articles. There's some really interesting stories associated with rosé.
Yeah, well, cool.
Yes.
So in terms of how you make a rosé, there are three typical methods. One is a direct press. So that's when we get the grapes, we put them in the press, and we process them like we would a white wine. And so these rosés are going to have some pigment, some tannins, but everything is going to be very delicate from its texture, flavor, to its color. So these direct pressed rosés will not be those bright pinks. They're going to be very subtle, very, very delicate. So that's one way. Another way is through a shortened maceration. So maceration is just the process of the juice kind of pulling in all those color pigments, the tannins and flavors from the skin. So it's the skin contact with the juice. And, with these, I think more about to visualize it, like tie-dye. Everyone's made a tie-dye shirt. And so when you put your shirt into the dye, if you just dunk it in and take it immediately out, it's going to be very light. You're not going to get a super dark or really intense tie-dye.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, I think so. Whereas if you leave it in there for an extended period of time, you're going to get those darker colors. And so with this shortened maceration, it can be very brief, or it can the juice can stay in contact with the skins for a couple days, depending on the stylistic choices of the winemakers or the clients or whoever's making the rosé. And so with this, we here at Palette, there are lots of different varietals that can be made into a rosé. So we have a Mourvedré, Pinot Noir, Tempranillo, and Syrah, and Grenache. So those are typically what we see here. And the last method is blending. And so that's when you take a white wine base and add in various amounts of a red wine. So if you're wanting a lighter rosé, you add a very little bit of red wine. But if you want a more intense colored rosé, you'd add more red wine. So those are the three common ways to get a rosé, which, yeah, I didn't know that when I first started. I thought rosés were their own thing, but I didn't know how you really got a rosé. But
yeah, that's a super common thing. A lot of people think a rosé is a particular type of grape when it's more of a style.
It's a style,
yes. So we have 3 wines for us to taste today. We'll get started with the Earthsong 2018 Pinot Noir Rosé. And you can see on this one, it's a beautiful light color.
Yeah.
So 2018 was a really smoky year. So this one had very little skin contact. I don't know if we've done a wine school where we've talked about smoke.
No, but so smoke taint molecules or compounds tend to hang around in the skins of grapes. And so during years where there's a lot of smoke, like in 2018 when this was produced, it's common to see more rosés because there's less skin contact, less chance for those smoke compounds to make their way into the juice in resulting wines.
Yes, so this is actually this is one of my favorite rosés that we have, and it's very light.
Very fruity on the nose.
Very fruity.
I think this is kind of what I would associate with like a typical rosé, or what most people might associate with a rosé.
And speaking of the blending method, one thing I learned that's not as common, especially in the EU, and I believe it's the Champagne region is one of the only regions in France where you can have blends for rosés, and it's really common in sparkling wines.
I did not know that.
Yes. So if you ever have a sparkling wine from Champagne, chances are it's going to have a little bit of Pinot Noir or maybe Pinot Meunier blended into it.
Very cool. Very yummy.
It's got just a little bit of sweetness to it. That's another common question people ask is, are rosés sweet? And it really depends on the winemaker and their stylistic choices. So this one's probably just off dry. It's got a little bit of residual sugar, but it's just it's still really nice on the palate and not overwhelming.
Yeah, very light. Very yummy.
All right. The next wine we have is going to be a touch darker. This is the 2016 Mourvedré Rosé.
As you can see, it's a little darker than the previous rosé. And already the smell's different than a Pinot Noir rosé.
It's definitely got a much more herbaceous quality to it.
Herbaceous as opposed to that fruitiness. But still very light.
And if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop those in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer them for you here tonight. If not, if you're watching this once it's recorded, leave a comment and we're happy to answer your questions as well. Yeah, and on the palate, this one's doesn't have the residual sugar.
Yeah, it's drier. You know what's so fun about these rosés is that there are a lot of just different rosés depending on what the winemaker wants to do and what style they want to pursue.
Okay, and the last one we have today is the 2015 Rosé of Syrah.
So a much darker It's kind of fun to see the gradients when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to rosés.
And this wine definitely has almost more of those red wine characteristics. Like I get that like white pepper.
Yeah, you can tell that this is a Syrah-based
Mm-hmm.
wine, or comes from Syrah grapes.
It's just a much more full-bodied, richer.
There's a little bit more structure there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so for those who maybe aren't so interested in the full-bodied like Syrah, rosés are kind of nice because they're definitely lighter versions of that, where you get those characteristics from like this, the white pepper, kind of those characteristics of a Syrah, but just maybe a little bit more approachable for those who maybe aren't a fan of those fuller.
Yeah, it
Nice.
doesn't have the tannins that some red wines have. So if you wanted to purchase any of these wines, we'll have the 2-bottle and the 3-bottle special going all through the month of February. So you can email us at info@theurbancork.com, or you can give us a call. We're also doing our wine club pickup through this next weekend. So if you wanted to join our wine club, or you're already a member of our wine club, you can taste these wines. We'll have them open this weekend. And yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And thank you, as always, for joining us. And if you have any questions, let us know.
All right, bye.
Thanks, guys.